Okay. Hello, everyone. This webinar is being recorded. We're just waiting, I think, another 60 to 90 seconds for some other folks to join. Thank you for joining. If you've just joined, we're waiting another minute or two to give some folks a little bit of extra time to join. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Hi, we'll wait maybe one more minute and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. If you're just coming in, we're waiting until 12:03, and then we'll get started and we'll introduce ourselves. Hi, everyone. We're just waiting until 12:03, so we're almost there. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in just a second. All right, it's 12:03, so I think we can get started. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Caroline. I am an electric vehicle program associate at Green Energy Consumers Alliance, and I'll be leading today's presentation. I'll give my supervisor a moment to introduce ourselves as well, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. My name's Anna. I'm our electric vehicle program director, and I will mostly be lurking in the chat. So if you write any questions in about audio or asking to share a link or anything like that, I'll be able to help you there.
Okay,
But thanks for
awesome.
coming.
Thank you, Anna. Hey, thank you for joining us. Happy New Year. So today we'll be talking about how to save on an electric car in Massachusetts, and that can be new or used. We'll specifically dive into the More EV rebate program, which is a statewide rebate offered for Massachusetts residents, as well as the used car market. So we'll touch upon affordability first. In a few slides, you can see our agenda. We are recording this webinar. We just want to let you know. We request that you remain muted. At the end of the webinar, we'll have some time for question and answers. There is a Q&A function as well. So please feel free to write in any questions. And at the end of the webinar, we'll take some time. We can go over your questions. If time doesn't allow, please feel free to email us. One of our last slides has both mine and Anna's contact information. You can email us and we'll get back to you. Later today, we will send out a recording of today's webinar as well as the slides. So if any questions come up later, please feel free to reach out. To tell you a little bit about us, we are speaking today from the Drive Green program at Green Energy Consumers Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization based in Massachusetts and Rhode Island with a mission to empower consumers and communities to speed a just transition to a zero carbon world. Our Drive Green program focuses on electric cars and outreach about the different ways that you can save on both an EV and charging at home. Anna focuses a little bit on transportation efficacy as well. So if you have any questions about any of the topics we cover, about any mandates or transportation emissions in Massachusetts, please feel free to drop a question. To reiterate, I'll briefly go over the order in which we'll talk about things today. We'll start off from an economic perspective, looking at some of the economic benefits and other ways you can save by making the switch. We'll pass on to the environmental benefits of making the switch, followed by some focus on charging. So if you are unfamiliar with charging, we'll go over the basics. We will review some incentives to install charging at home offered by the utilities in Massachusetts. And we'll take a look at charging infrastructure because not everyone can charge at home and access to public charging is important. Of course, we're going to spend some time looking at the More EV rebate program today and the used EV car market. At the end, we have a couple of neat tools to share with you about estimating, your particular and approximate savings for making the switch, as well as picking the right EV for you. Well, first, we'll start off with electric vehicle basics. We're starting off with a battery electric vehicle, which is a battery-powered vehicle. It has zero tailpipe emissions. Most battery electric vehicles have a range of 250 to around 350 or more, 350 miles. That is most modern EVs that are within the last 5 years. EVs have been on the road for some time. If we're looking at an earlier battery electric vehicle, like one of the first gen Nissan Leafs, that might have a lower range. So that 60 to 400 plus mile range does take into account how long EVs or battery electric vehicles have been on the road. We have seen some battery electric vehicles that have a range that is higher than 400 miles as well. So later on in the webinar, when we're looking at specific lease deals, if you have a question about what particular EV has that higher range, we can, address that. Battery electric vehicles can charge at levels 1, 2, and 3, which is DC fast charging. When we move on to charging basics, we'll discuss what the different levels of charging mean. A plug-in hybrid is a vehicle that has both a gasoline engine and a small battery. It has a range of 150 to 560 miles in total, but it does have a small battery. So 25 to 53 miles tend to be the average electric range of plug-in hybrids. Plug-in hybrids can be fully charged anywhere from 1.5 to 10 hours at level 2. There are some newer plug-in hybrids that are capable of DC fast charging. So that means if you are charging at a level 3 charger and have a plug-in hybrid, you'll probably meet that electric range in a short amount of time. I think I neglected to mention that battery electric vehicles, when charged at level 2, charge in anywhere from 4 to 10 hours. That depends on the battery capacity and charging speed. And we'll touch upon hybrid vehicles as a third vehicle type that we will not focus on. But to provide more information, hybrid vehicles are gasoline engines that essentially charge an electric motor. They do not plug in. In total, the mile range of hybrid vehicles are 500 to 670 miles, and you would refuel at a gas station versus charging your car. So battery electric vehicles are a great option if you want zero tailpipe emissions and can either charge at home or have access to public charging, which we'll get into how to navigate public charging near you because that's very important. And plug-in hybrids are another more efficient means of personal transportation. And it's more efficient than your average gas car or in hybrid vehicles as well. And the plug-in hybrids can charge. So if you do have access to level 2 charging at home or a public fast charger and want less emissions than an internal combustion engine vehicle, a plug-in hybrid might be a good choice for you. On to some of the economic benefits of making the switch. Upfront costs are very important. In this particular time, the average price of a new car is above $50,000, and that is a record high number. So upfront costs are very important and are big concerns from car buyers. Prices are particularly rising for new and used gasoline cars. Within this time period, so we're thinking fall and early winter of 2025, early winter of 2026, the average cost of a used electric vehicle fluctuates between $20,000 and $30,000. This is before the state incentive is applied. With an EV, you can save with a couple of different things. The rebate program, if you are a resident of Massachusetts, can save on fuel costs and on maintenance costs, which we'll cover. Lower fuel costs are very important. Essentially, charging your electric vehicle with electricity is generally more affordable and cheaper on your wallet than filling up a car with gasoline. This does depend on where you charge and the charging level. If you charge at home, we will look at this, but there are some different incentives to help cover the cost of installing a level 2 charging station at both single family and multi-unit homes. We live in New England, and we know that electricity costs are higher in the winter. You generally can save a few cents per mile when we look at it at a more granular level, but it does depend on the time of year and your electricity prices for that month. But generally in the winter, savings from charging electric are lower than in the warmer months. Additionally, if you charge at home and you access a utility incentive, you can enroll in that utilities managed charging program. And we'll look at what that means and what that looks like, but that allows you to save more on charging in the long run. And this is very similar to what we just talked about, but I wanted to look at some of the particular fuel costs in February. And we update our fuel costs methodology every couple of months. We look at the average cost of electricity price. We look at electricity bills from the utilities in Massachusetts, as well as the utility in Rhode Island. And we collect this information to calculate how much it costs to charge per mile electric versus how much it costs to refuel a gasoline car on a per mile basis. So these are updated numbers. We'll start with National Grid. We're looking at the cost per kilowatt hour to be 32 cents, a little higher, 34 cents for Eversource. The third column refers to how long the price per kilowatt hour remains or stays true. So I mentioned we update the fuel cost methodology quarterly or as often as the utilities update their fees for their consumers. There are a couple of assumptions that come into these calculations, such as the average efficiency of an EV, as well as the average efficiency of a gas car. And if we move on to the fourth column, we do some math, and so we take the cost per mile electric, the cost per mile on gasoline, and we will subtract the two. And then generally we'll come to see that you save a few cents per mile electric versus per mile on gas. If you have any particular questions about how we did our math or how we got our numbers, when we send out these slides, our fuel cost methodology page is linked. But as you can see, National Grid and Eversource customers actually save between 8 to 10 cents per mile electric, which is pretty impressive given that electricity rates tend to fluctuate a little higher in the winter. Additionally, as mentioned before, you can save if you enroll in your utilities managed charging program. And basically, managed charging programs incentivize consumers to charge their EV during off-peak hours. And that will depend on the season. So the off-peak hours will fluctuate between the winter and the summer. But if you work from home one day a week, for example, that might be a good time to charge your vehicle. And if you're enrolled in an off-peak program. So National Grid currently offers a managed charging program, and National Grid customers receive a $50 enrollment incentive and on average earn around $100 by participating in the off-peak charging program. Eversource is in the process of planning its managed charging program, and the program details, as well as how to enroll, are expected to be announced this year. Public charging is important, and the cost to public charge will depend on electricity rates, where you're charging, the time of day, and some stations have added fees, so that's important to consider. In Massachusetts, the average cost to fast charge an EV was around 59 cents per kilowatt hour. This number is taken from a resource called Perrin. We often will attend Perrin webinars, and Perrin will publish a quarterly report for the state of level 3 or DC fast charging infrastructure across the country. And what's really great is it really zeroed down into average cost to charge on a state level. So that is the average cost to fast charge in Massachusetts in the late fall, early winter of 2025, 2026. Of course, level 2 charging is cheaper. It is a small graph, but you might notice that the cost to charge really fluctuates. So it really does depend on several factors, including where you're charging, the electricity rate, and maybe the season, which can affect like how high or how low that electricity rate is, among other factors. We'll move on to maintenance costs. There are fewer parts to maintain in a battery electric vehicle than in a gas car. And there are fewer parts when we're looking at plug-in hybrids as well. But we're looking here at a graph the Department of Energy released back in 2021. And this is a graph we will often reference to or refer to in some of our resources because it's really great and on a granular level really defines what some of the different scheduled maintenance costs are for light duty vehicles. So on the left, we see gas cars followed by traditional hybrids that do not have a battery, that do not plug in, followed by plug-in hybrids. And finally, we have battery electric vehicles. So the battery and the motor do not require much maintenance. Battery electric vehicles are capable of over-the-air updates, which cover a lot of small maintenance or software updates if they are needed. A battery electric vehicle will not use oil, so you will not need an oil change, and brake pads hardly need to be replaced in battery electric vehicles due to something called regenerative braking. So as you can see on this graph, EVs have around 50% lower maintenance costs versus gas cars. Particular savings vary, but one reputable resource we have found considers estimated maintenance costs over the vehicle's lifetime to be around $4,600. The vehicle's lifetime considers before the vehicle is on the road, so considers the manufacturing process, battery sourcing, followed by leave the vehicle being on the road, which can, people own their vehicles for many years. And so that is from inception to the end of the vehicle's lifetime. that is a high number, and that will vary depending on several factors. Our fuel and maintenance costs savings page has a couple of tools to help you calculate how much you might save on your EV. But Kaltura's EV savings calculator is a good resource. It's online, free to use. It considers a couple of questions. How many miles do you drive a year? How much is your current monthly car payment? It'll also ask you, are you considering getting another vehicle in the next 6 months? After answering these questions, you are directed to another page where you may input your zip code, your current vehicle efficiency, and the cost for gas where you live. And then we inputted a couple of pictures. I know they are small, but I filled this out, and this just goes to show how detailed the report that it generates can be. So recommend checking that out. Because if you live in a different part of the state from me and drive a different amount of miles per year, you're likely to have different savings. And for transparency, I do not drive 30,000 miles a year, but I just wanted to get a feel and for what savings could be for different scenarios. All right, and overall estimated savings, again, vary. We reported an estimation of $4,600 in maintenance costs over the lifetime of the vehicle in a previous slide. Consumer Reports, on the other hand, estimate that EV drivers can save an average of $6,000 to $12,000 over the vehicle's lifetime. This takes into account fuel and maintenance cost savings. Their 2023 estimates do depend on the vehicle type. And essentially, their study took into account some popular battery electric vehicles that are on the road. And what's really interesting is there are 3 levels of savings. So they looked at the first year, the first owner savings, and lifetime savings. As you can see, lifetime savings tend to be higher because that considers fuel and the maintenance costs, and all some other things. So on to environmental benefits. Transportation emissions are high in Massachusetts, most recently making up 38% of statewide emissions. Electric vehicle adoption is both a policy and actionable item for Massachusetts residents to adopt. Luckily, there are some incentives that help, and we will start in a few moments spending some time looking at what some of those incentives look like and how much you can save. But EVs are really big for public health as well. The American Lung Association estimates that a full electrification scenario, so nationwide, by 2050 would generate $1.2 trillion in public health benefits. We're recently had a webinar, podcast, we're publishing a blog that expands upon this topic if you're interested. The same report estimated what particular savings would look like in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. But EVs are important for our public health. EVs do not have a tailpipe and have no tailpipe emissions. Gasoline vehicles emit harmful toxins like particulate matter and nitrous oxide, especially through the tailpipe as well as through road wear. All vehicles contribute to road wear, but the no tailpipe emission is pretty big. And when we are exposed to some of these environmental toxins, the chance of developing adverse health, particularly respiratory conditions, increases, particularly among vulnerable populations. To expand on some of the gas car pollution and health impacts, we can look at some of the health risks that are associated with particulate matter and ozone pollution, as well as nitrous oxide. Children and adults tend to be among the most vulnerable, as well as communities of color and lower income communities. Some of the respiratory conditions you can see here, including worsening asthma attacks, increased visits to the hospital, pregnant women are at risk, children are at risk. The adverse impacts are huge and affect many. Moving on to charging basics, we can look to provide a little bit of a background for the different levels of charging and the different ports that are out there. On the left, we're looking at two different types of ports. There is level 1 and level 2 charging before we talk about DC fast charging. Level 1 is the slowest type of charge, and level 2 is considerably faster. Level 2 you can do at home, and you can access a utility incentive, or the federal tax credit for charging expires later this year. But if you live in a qualifying census tract, you can access that as well to install a level 2 charger at home. So level 2 charger is commonly done at home, but there are public level 2 charging stations all around us. And level 3, on the other hand, is much faster than level 2. DC fast charging or level 3 is only at public charging stations. It is considerably faster, and generally, if you're charging from starting from around 20 or less percent of a full battery, you can reach at least 80% of the battery of a full charge in half an hour if you're driving a relatively new EV that is somewhere between 5 or less years old. But that is a pretty standard number that you can reach 80% of a full charge in half an hour. And this can translate to around 200 miles as well, depending on your particular vehicle. Fast charging is a little bit easier with something called the North American Charging Standard. You might notice on the right here, there are 3 different ports. You don't need to name them right now, but you'll notice that they look different. Later, when we look at some of the tools available to help consumers decide what the right battery electric vehicle might be for them, we'll spend a little time looking at some of the vehicles that might have some of these different charging ports. But NAC stands for North American Charging Standard. And basically, it refers to Tesla charging. The NACS, or North American Charging Standard, became the standardized port a couple of years ago. And since then, major automakers have been working to make adapters available or make the NACS port a native feature on new battery electric vehicles. An adapter would be needed if the battery electric vehicle had one of the other ports that we looked at. And an adapter could then be used to charge at a Tesla supercharging station. There are over 30,000 superchargers across the US. So the Tesla supercharging network is robust, and this standardization, coupled with adapters being made available, and now more increasingly NACS ports being built as a native feature onto new battery electric vehicles, is really important for access to charging near you. Navigating public charging is important. There are two tools that we like to recommend, including PlugShare and a Better Route Planner. This is a screenshot from PlugShare right here of public chargers available in the Boston area. But there are different charging network companies, such as ChargePoint and Electrify America, that will have their own apps. But generally, those chargers are viewable and findable on PlugShare and a Better Route Planner. We'll differentiate between the two because a Better Route Planner we love to recommend for longer trip planning, like a road trip. But PlugShare, and they're both easy to use. PlugShare is open sourced, and what that means is, or an added benefit of that is, if you are looking for a particular charger, you can leave reviews, and you might notice that someone has written in, oh, not many are available, some of these are in use, or this charger is down for maintenance, as an example. You can save on a charger at home. In Massachusetts, there are a couple of different incentives that help residents and commercial entities, but we'll focus on the residents for today, to save on the purchase of a charger and installation at home. or in a home with more than 2 units. Today we'll focus on the incentives offered by National Grid and Eversource. Not every Massachusetts resident gets their electricity from National Grid or Eversource. So if you get your electricity from a municipal light plant, we recommend you check to see if they offer incentives for home charging. If you live in a single family home and are a customer of National Grid and Eversource, this is the first rebate that is offered. So if you are in the low income electricity rate, the rebate amount is around $1,000 for in-home infrastructure upgrades or $700 for the purchase of a charger. If you live in what's designated as an environmental justice community, that is $1,000 you'd receive for in-home infrastructure upgrades during the installation process. If you are on the regular electricity rate and do not live in an environmental justice community, the rebate that you would receive is up to $700 for in-home infrastructure upgrades. We have linked in the contact information for these programs. So if you have a specific technical question about your scenario, we always are here to provide support if you have any questions, but sometimes more specific scenarios, we like to recommend you reach out to the program administrators of National Grid and Eversource's rebate programs. Their National Grid and Eversource offer a charging rebate program for 2 to 4 unit homes as well. So if you are on the regular electricity rate and do not live in an environmental justice community, the rebate that you can receive is up to $1,400 for in-home infrastructure upgrades. If you live in an environmental justice community, you'll see that rebate is a little bit higher. And if you are on the low income electricity rate, you will receive, you are eligible to receive a rebate for installation if electricity upgrades are needed, which might mean the installation of the 240 volt outlet, for example, to support level 2 charging, and a rebate for the purchase of a home charger. Oh, always, you're welcome to reach out to us for questions, and we've linked in the particular contact information for these particular rebate programs as well. It would be very important to touch upon the More EV Reboot program, which is offered statewide. More EV offers several different rebates. More EV standard is $3,500 that Massachusetts residents can receive towards a new electric vehicle. And that can be you're purchasing or leasing. All of these are for purchasing or leasing. $3,500 is used. As you can see, there's an income qualifying out rebate. If you trade in a qualifying gas car, there's an additional rebate you can receive. And there's a rebate for electric pickup trucks, and that rebate amount is higher than that of standard. Most of the rebates can be received at point of sale. That is More EV Standard, More EV Used, and More EV Plus. In the next slide, we will look at kind of a breakdown of these rebates. As you can see, we're looking at the different rebates and which can be received at the point of sale or post-purchase. So More EV Standard, More EV Used, and More EV Plus can all be received at the point of sale or post-purchase. For all post-purchase scenarios, you have 90 days to apply for the rebate and access it after purchasing or leasing. More EV Used and More EV Plus require a pre-qualification voucher to receive it at the point of sale. That can be done online. And for More EV Used, to qualify, because there is an income qualification, you must show participation in a federal or state income qualifying program like SNAP, Mass Health, LIHEAP, for example, or your adjusted gross income must be under specific levels. For More EV Plus, that pre-qualification is very similar. And not focus too much on More EV trucks, but I'll shout out the moreev.org website because not only is there more information on the particular adjusted gross income limits, as well as the weight limits for More EV truck for the trucks to qualify. But there are tools there to look at which vehicles qualify for more EV standard, as well as which trucks qualify. You can look at which dealerships participate, and then you'll know that those dealerships are have previously administered the rebate at the point of sale. Spend some time on the used EV market. There are many affordable EVs on the used EV market right now. Is pretty robust. We've referenced this report a couple of times recently. Recurrent Auto is a resource that does many things EV, but they will publish a quarterly market report on the state of the used EV market. And this is from quarter 3, 2025, and it is no longer quarter 3 of 2025. There are a couple of other reports that we have looked at, really just verifying and supporting the idea that the used EV market is affordable and robust right now. But this graph and the figures that are on this slide really stand out. And so we wanted to spend some time looking at that. So as you can see, a majority of used EV listings are at most 5 years old, and almost half are nearly 2 years old. So that means that the inventory, the stock is relatively new. Listings can be found for under $25,000, even under that, but more than half are under $30,000. So this graph really just was to show that used EVs have done really well in the last like 8-9 months. There are relatively new options available, and there are affordable options available that meet different budgets. This is just one list of used EVs under $15,000. Kelley Blue Book and our used EV Finder are some great tools to look at for differentiating between different used EVs based on average price, electric range. And if you look at Kelley Blue Book, you can put in your zip code to look at like what is for sale near you. You'll notice that 2020 is the most recent vehicle on this list. It really depends on where you are in current stock, but this is just an example to show that there are a variety of used EVs available at different budgets. This is just a quick list of some used EVs that are under $30,000. The average price is really important. Our used EV Finder, actually, which I'll show in a couple of slides, takes into account Kelley Blue Book's fair purchase price. So what that means is that number takes from all of the listings that are publicly available and calculates what the high and low ends of fair purchase prices are, or what you can expect to find. So these are some EVs under $30,000 used. Picking the right EV for you, buying a new car, whether it be pre-owned, pre-loved, or new, can be daunting. There are a couple of things to consider when buying a new or used EV. First, you might consider how much you drive per day, like what your lifestyle patterns are like. You might ask yourself, do you want a new or used battery electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid? Purchasing or leasing might be another consideration. Might be curious about special deals offered on an electric vehicle near you, as well as access to charging, and if charging at home can be a possibility. These are some helpful considerations. Now, we'll follow our 2 tools for helping move along in that process. Our new EV Finder is a shopping tool for new available electric vehicles. We update this pretty often. You can filter and sort by different criteria, including charging speed, range, etc., as you can see. Our used EV Finder was just recently updated. So Similarly, it is a shopping tool. So there are many and many used EVs that are on here. You can look at different years for a particular model, as well as for fair purchase price that I mentioned. So both of those resources are linked. And before we close out, leasing is another consideration. Um, there are a couple of different resources that will be updated monthly, and we took from one of those resources, which are EV lease deals that are offered nationwide. So might depend on the region, but with the sticker price being at an all-time high for new vehicles, monthly lease payments vary, and there are other listings on this particular list, but we were particularly looking at monthly lease payments under $400. That is linked here as well. And that closes out the information for today. There are a few events that we have coming up. Their links will be provided when we send out the slides. A variety of these are webinars. I think there are at least one or two that are in person, including the Central Square Clean Energy Party on Friday, January 30th. So more information to follow. If you have any questions, we can spend some time in the Q&A right now, but if we don't get to your question today, please feel free to email us. Awesome. Okay. Anna, do you see any questions in the Q&A?
Yes, I've been answering a couple just in writing, but one question that I thought would be good for us to talk about a little bit more is the adapters. Can you explain where people can find adapters? Do they cost
Yeah.
money? How does that work?
Yeah. Like the NACS adapter. Okay. Yeah, that is the first thing to consider is like what is the manufacturer of the vehicle you drive or the vehicle that you were looking at. Most automakers have just either manufactured or just made available their own adapters. That means that they are approved. I recommend just taking a look at the OEM website. Generally, I know those websites can be really can be overwhelming depending on the manufacturer, and there can be a lot of information and drop downs. But often, when we look at particular destination URLs for different adapters, we'll look at the OEM marketplace, which there generally is a section at the top of the website, and the adapter would be under accessories. Cost can vary depending on how long the adapter has been out and the manufacturer for a period of time. Generally, when the adapters are or were first made available, many manufacturers we saw offered the NACS adapter free of cost to consumers who have recently purchased or leased a vehicle within the last model year. So that is something to consider in case it might be free for the particular manufacturer you're looking at. I've seen costs that vary from like 120 to 220 as a particular range. And I'm not sure I covered all of the points to that question, but I'll just close. If you have an adapter and the charging port on your vehicle is not does not look like the NACS adapter, you would use the adapter, and you can then use that at a Tesla supercharging station. More and more stations that are coming online will have the NACS port, so you can plug in there as well. But definitely, I would start with the OEM website.
The only thing I'll add to that is if you go to our EV Finder, you can sort the vehicles that are available and look at either vehicles that have a NACS port built into the vehicle or have a charging adapter available. So if it's really important to you to be able to access NACS or Tesla stations, then you can look at vehicles that either do that because that's how they're built or because there's an adapter available. So that's on our website.
Really quickly,
Yeah.
If you're not sure like which chargers are available near you or what sort of port they're compatible with, PlugShare, like so one of the charging map tools that we listed here has like a sorting legend, and you can also likewise with our EV Finder, you can filter like what kind of criteria you're looking at. So if your EV has a particular port, or if you have an adapter, you can put that in, you can select that, and then you can see chargers that you can charge with your adapter.
Have another question here asking whether there are specific types of charging stations that municipalities require versus homeowners. Caroline, if you want to respond to that, go for it. Otherwise, I'm happy to as well.
Yeah, homeowners will generally have a level 1 or a level 2 charger, but a municipality might have a level 2 or a DC fast charger. Municipalities, in terms of access to greater power, so hence they might have DC fast charging stations, depending on where the charger is located. Sometimes they're located at schools. They may or may not be 24-hour accessible for 24 hours. I think sometimes we'll see that municipalities might offer a more affordable charging cost than a private public charger, or a public charger that's not owned by a municipality, but charging costs vary. I'll give you some time to respond to that.
The only thing I'd add is that I think the main distinction is that if you're a homeowner installing a charger, it's basically just safety equipment that's making sure that the electricity coming into your vehicles is appropriate for the state of charge of the battery and the type of vehicle and all that. If a municipality is installing a charger, they likely want to be able to charge drivers for using it. So the hardware is at its core pretty similar in that it's safety equipment, but you might have it on a bollard, or like on bollard. I never know how to pronounce that name. You might have it like on a sidewalk as opposed to just a little unit that you attach to a wall. And then there's software packages that come along with that allow you to require drivers to pay a certain amount by kilowatt hour, which you don't need if it's a charging unit just in your garage. The one place where there's a little bit of overlap is if you live in a multi-family home where maybe the landlord has installed the charger for use by all the tenants. There you might actually have a basically residential charger that still wants to differentiate between users and charge them for the electricity they consume. So there's a bunch of charger hardware companies that have level 2 chargers that you can install at home or in a public setting. They might look a little different, and the difference is that they can charge different users. So I hope that answers that question. We have Anonymous asking if we have any resources for someone who is hesitant to convert fully to a battery electric as opposed to a hybrid.
Yeah, so I read that. I think a lot of things came to mind, mainly being our blog posts or our newer used EV finders. But I think my biggest recommendation might be to give us an email or give us a call. So if there are particular questions that you have, we can better pinpoint you to specific resources, or we can, if we're on the phone, can provide can show you where to navigate to some of those resources so you can read on your own time, or we can have a conversation about it. Just because there are a lot of resources available, and I want to make sure that it is most tailored to your questions. I put in our emails here, but I will also type in our Drive Green general email.
I'll add that we have a community group on Facebook that when we send out an email after this webinar, we'll include a link there. And that is a group that consists of people who either have electric vehicles and want to share their experience about it, or are curious and learning more. So people will share articles that they find, but also ask questions or share their experiences. And there's plenty of people there who have been in that position of not quite sure, should I make the jump, should I not? So people post questions there all the time along the lines of like, how do I install charging in my garage? Or did anybody else also consider these two vehicles, and which one did you pick and why? So that's a place where, I mean, we're happy to talk to you, as Caroline said, by phone or email, but if you want to talk to other EV drivers, that's also a place where you can chat with them. I think we've made it through our question list.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up our phone number. So I can make sure that this Anonymous has it as an option. All right.
I've got it, actually. I'll put it in the chat.
Great. Okay.
Oh,
There are no questions.
oh, there's just a thank you. Thank you for the thank you.
For joining us today. You have our email. Please feel free to reach out with any more questions, whether it be about EVs, plug-in hybrids, or incentives. You know where to find us. We will be back in contact with you later today with a webinar recording and slides, as well as some links. So feel free to reply to that email if you'd like, if you have any more questions. Yeah, thanks so much. It looks like, yeah, we've covered all questions. I think we can go eat lunch. All right.
Have a good afternoon,
Thanks
everybody.
so much. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.